feel just so uncomfortable in my skin. No, you told me that you love me, but I don't remember when. Oh, 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 oh. But I hear you say, child, stop listening to yourself so much. I've made you more than worthy of my love. You are fearfully and wonderfully made, and that's enough. Oh, child, if you could see yourself the way that I do, you'd see I made you in my image, and my work's not through. All the dance on this disappointment in a world made new. Oh, in the fire, you make this seem all too far gone. Oh, I know your heart is broken, but the last words I've spoken, the best is still yet to come. Oh, I know your heart is tired, the floods and the fire, you make this seem all too far gone. Oh, I know your heart is broken, but the last words not spoken, the best is still yet to come. Well, our souls had desire, then a fire that we finally found. Yet in darkness and cold, if you hold it, it'll never go out. Then we stumbled on some treasure and started digging underground. Whoa. When we laid down the flame, we didn't notice when the fire went out. And now we're going down. We started with soul, now we're chasing diamonds and gold. Let's throw them into the night. They'll say we're crazy, that's fine. They'll say we're out of our mind. We'll tell them alright. If the world is all we got, then alright, but it's not do what you want. Just remember diamonds and gold and soul, they fight. It was dark, it was cold, heaven gold, couldn't stop the night. It turns out treasure only shimmers and glimmers when it's under a fire. So we tried to relight it, find a way to ignite it. Nothing satisfied until we let it all go to the floor. And with the gold on the ground, we heard the beautiful sound of the spark and the flame and the roar. We started with soul, now we're chasing diamonds and gold. Let's throw them into the night. They'll say we're crazy, that's fine. They'll say we're out of our mind. We'll tell them alright. If the world is all we got, then alright, but it's not do what you want. Just remember diamonds and gold and soul, they fight. Don't believe me, you gon' see. You gon' know when I spit these raps, swear it's coming from the soul. Yeah. I've been moving fast, steadily, I'm on the go. Yeah. I'ma make it last, promise I'ma make the most of it. Yeah, watch the profit spit. Steady through the process, brought up prompt acknowledgement. Yeah. Me and my apostles, partners move monotonous. Low key out the mix. Watch for profit flips to my consciousness. Evil in the midst, I can feel apocalypse. Look, caps off, we graduated. Hats off, I know they hate it. Blast off, brothers, we made it. I don't really dance, but I swerve out with the yeet. Yeah, I just stay low key. I like life better discreet. I know what they need, so I'm back in with the heat. Yeah. So I'm back with B.O.B.s. I went on hiatus, had to take some time to think. Yeah, like I'm too fast, had to slow it down for me. Things getting too real, I can't lie, it's getting deep. Yeah. Don't believe me, you gon' see.
I came off hiatus, got this hate up off my soul. I was anxious, had these thoughts inside my mind, yeah, they were foul and they were flavoring. I was losing track of time and losing everyone I came with. I was trying to grip my mind, but it was slipping, it was devil on me looking, devil on me lurking. Every time I did it, I would end up hurting. Thought it would be different, I'm a different person. How do I admit it? It was inadvertent. I know God is working. Voices in my head, they won't leave me alone. Yeah, they tell me to give up, but I say I won't. Yeah, he still lives inside me, I can't play alone. Yeah, nowadays you call, I might just not hit you. Yeah, nowadays these beats.
That's pretty good.
Hello.
I think we're live.
I believe so. You have a camera on us.
Sick.
Woo.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, Ardent,
Hello.
the youth family.
Hello, everybody, to everybody who's here in person and everybody who's watching online. This week, we got Brett back.
I am back after my 1
Hi,
week
Brett.
off. I'm here. Hello, everyone. It's good to be back.
It's good to have you back, Brett.
Thank you.
So I'm going to give a little recap of what we did last week. So last week, we started talking about leadership. And for those of you who are here or saw it online last week, you would remember I used an acronym, and it was the greatest acronym known to man. It was HURL, because every good leader should be hurling. And it stands for this. H stands for humility. I stands for integrity. R stands for reliability. And L stands for love, which is adorable. And so we went through H and I, and we kind of talked about like why these qualities are things that leaders should have. Like universally, leaders should have these, or good leaders should have them. If you don't want to be a good leader, well, then you don't need them, I guess. I don't know.
Nice.
But preferably, you want to be a good leader, you know? And so we talked about why a leader should have them and what the Bible has to say about them and kind of how that connects to our Christian life. And so with like humility, like we ought to be humble and listen to the people around us. We are not the most important things on the face of the earth. There are far more important things than us. And then with integrity, we need to live with integrity. We need to live in integrity so that people can't pull us apart. You know, kind of like when the elections are rolling around and there's all these like attack ads, or like when they're debating and they'll be like, you suck. And then they'll be like, no, you suck. And it's like, this is why you suck. And it's like, no. When we live in integrity, people can't rip us apart. So, yeah, that's kind of what we talked about last week. And this week, we are going to be doing R and L, so reliability and love, which is adorable. So, R for reliable. And I'm going to ask you, what does reliability mean? Or how would you describe or define reliable?
When I think of reliable, I think of kind of almost a reliable friend, a friend that is always there for you. If you need something, you can call them, or they're just always there when you need them, kind of thing. And just you can always count on them. If they say they're going to be somewhere, they'll be at that place at that time. You can just always count on them to do whatever they're going to say. They're a man of their word, almost. So, yeah.
So as a leader, why would you say we need to be reliable?
Well, if we're taking a position of charge, we definitely, and if we're having others look up to us, we definitely need to be reliable. And if we say we're going to do something and people are going to follow us there, we can't just walk away from it. We can't just kind of leave that be. So definitely, obviously, an important leadership quality.
I looked on Google earlier today, and reliability means to be consistently good in quality or performance, able to be trusted. So, yeah, it means to put out good work, do your job and do it well. You have that reputation to do so, and because you do, people trust you with things. They're willing to trust you with bigger responsibilities and stuff. So what does the Bible have to say about being reliable, and really what does that have to do with us? So in Genesis, there's this guy named Joseph, and Joseph was one of 12 brothers. He was the most loved brother by their father, so he was the favorite son. Are you the favorite son?
Yeah, I mean.
Yes. So, yeah, he was the favorite son, and because he was the favorite, it kind of got to his head, and he goes to his brothers and tells them, it's like, hey, one day I'm going to rule over you. I mean, he had dreams that said that, but his brothers were like, nah, bro, that's not cool, and they threw him in a hole and then sold him off to slavery, which is the opposite of ruling over somebody. But he ends up in this guy Potiphar's house and working for this guy Potiphar, and Potiphar's like, you're a really awesome worker. You get things done. I'm going to give you more responsibility. You're going to actually end up running my house. So Joseph did all of Potiphar's work at home, and managed like the family finances and doing all that stuff. But Potiphar's wife was like, Joseph is a good-looking guy. So she is like, hey, Joseph, have sex with me. And Joseph's like, nah, your husband Potiphar, he likes me, and he trusts me with all of, like, his household, like, stuff. I can't do that to him. I can't betray his trust. So what she do? She says, she screams and, like, accuses Joseph of trying to rape her. And Joseph didn't do any of that stuff. But Joseph ends up in prison. And it's kind of funny because, like Genesis says this, the keeper of the prison put Joseph in charge of all the prisoners who were in the prison. Whatever was done there, he was the one who did it. The keeper of the prison paid no attention to it, or to anything that was in Joseph's charge, because the Lord was with him, and whatever he did, the Lord made it succeed. And so it's like we see Joseph, again, earning the trust of the person who ran the prison, and Joseph ended up becoming in charge of the prisoners, which would normally be like the prison guards. And so, like, Joseph was the person who kept them in line, and Joseph was the person who made sure, like, they were doing the things they had to be doing, and he got things done. And so, yeah, which is kind of funny. But eventually, one of Pharaoh's cupbearers and one of his bakers or cooks or chefs ended up getting thrown in prison. And they had these crazy, crazy dreams. And they're like, we don't know what they mean. And they kind of got freaked out over it. And so what does Joseph do? He interprets their dreams. And I know I'm like kind of going through this pretty fast. But yeah, he interprets their dreams, and they end up, or his interpretations end up happening. And one of them dies, which is the chef guy, and the cupbearer, he lives. And he ends up working for Pharaoh again. And like a few years pass, and Pharaoh has like these crazy dreams, and he's like, I don't know what they mean. And nobody could tell Pharaoh what they mean. And finally the cupbearer's like, oh, this guy interpreted a dream of mine, so yeah, he's in prison, so I'll go get him and he can interpret your dream. And so Joseph ends up interpreting Pharaoh's dream, and long story short, Joseph ended up being the second in command of all of Egypt. And he did a great job. Underneath Joseph, Egypt flourished, and like he made Pharaoh money, he made people happy, he implemented things that was like really good for the country, and the entire country became one of the wealthiest nations in the known world at the time. Yeah, and because Joseph was reliable, he got things done. He had a reputation for getting things done. Everywhere he went, he got more and more responsibility. He was trusted with more. In the book of Luke, in the New Testament, we see this. One who is faithful in very little is also faithful in much. And one who's dishonest in very little is also dishonest in much. If then you've been faithful in the unrighteous wealth, if you have not been faithful in the unrighteous wealth, who will entrust to you the true riches? And if you have not been faithful in that which is another's, who will give you that which is your own? When we look at the life of Joseph, who worked hard, we see that he was trusted by the people around him. We see that he was trustworthy. And he trusted God. God blessed him, and it's really important that as Christians, we're reliable people, because we reflect Jesus. When we show that we're reliable, it's a good reflection on Jesus. People see him in a good light. As followers of Jesus, we represent him, and how we do our work shows his work in our life. And then as leaders, we have to be reliable, because nobody wants an unreliable person as a leader. Like, if I was following somebody who didn't know what they were doing all the time, if I was following somebody who never did anything right, I mean, I'd probably quit, you know? And then same thing, if I was like if I was like a boss of like a manager and the manager couldn't like effectively run their team, then I would fire the person, you know? I wouldn't want that person on my team because they're not doing what they should be and they're not trustworthy. Yeah, I don't know. Anything else to add, Brett?
I mean, yeah, just reliable in general. I find it really cool to see just how even I think Joseph spent 19 years in prison, but he still had like faith in God, and God still helped him through that. And just it's so cool to see just how God was working his life. And I feel like often sometimes we're just thinking, well, I asked God for this, like when's it going to happen? But we look at the story of Joseph, and it was like 19 years in the prison, where I'm sure he was like, God, where are you at? Because like he had this dream where he was supposed to be a leader, and his brothers was going to bow down to him, kind of things. He had these visions that were clearly from God, and they spoke to him. But then he spent 19 years in prison, where I'm sure those are very hard years, where he was just calling out to God, saying, "What's going on?" But I know that God taught him so much through those years, and he wouldn't have had the same success in Pharaoh's household and just over Egypt in general if he hadn't spent those 19 years in prison. So it's just cool to see. I love the story of Joseph.
Yeah, it's interesting how like God builds that in us, and like when we kind of trust our work to him and trust him to work through us in that, like stuff gets done, and oftentimes more than we would get done like on our own, like honestly, right? And so, yeah, R is for reliable, and L is for love, which is like almost sounds like a really silly thing to have as like a leader should have love, you know? And more often than not, like I think of it as like romantic love, but like that's not what we're talking about. There's other types of love that aren't like romance or romantic. It is kind of a weird one. So yeah, oftentimes, actually more often than not in the Bible, they talk about love not as in like husband and wife or like dating relationship, but like taking care of the people around us. Like for example, when we're told to love our neighbor, we're not God's not being like, you should go date your neighbor. No. I mean, there's nothing wrong with dating your neighbor, but no, God's talking about like making sure their needs are being met, making sure they're being taken care of, being kind to people, caring for people, you know? And so as leaders, it's really important that we do that. In fact, it's kind of interesting because like I'm going to use a verse that's more often than not used at weddings and stuff like that. It comes from 1 Corinthians. It's 1 Corinthians 13. I'm going to share the whole passage because the whole thing like pertains to it.
Corinthians 13, 4 to 8. Very good.
Well, 1 to 13. So 1 Corinthians 13, 1 to 13. So, yeah, I know. I told you, the whole passage. It's not the longest of things, but yeah. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clamoring cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, but do not have love, and if I have faith that can move mountains, I missed that part, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it's not self-seeking, it's not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails, but where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part, but when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three things remain: faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. And it's interesting, because like when you're looking at this letter, and most oftentimes this is a passage that's used in like wedding ceremonies, where like the bride and the groom are standing there, and then whoever's officiating is like, and the greatest of these is love, and love is patient, love is kind, you know? But it's interesting, because right before this, Paul is talking about gifts of the Spirit. And he's talking about like the leaders in the church, because people were questioning like, who do we follow? What's like the hierarchy? Is it like pastors before the people, or is it like people who prophesy? And you know, and Paul's like, well, it goes like this. And then he says, but really, that doesn't matter, because what's important is that you guys love each other. You know, that's one of the greatest commandments is love your neighbor. I mean, and then the greatest was love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind. And so when we do all these things and we don't have love, we're missing the point. You know, when we're doing things and we don't care for others, we're missing the point. When when we're a leader and we're doing it just to make ourselves look good, we're missing the point of leadership. And as leaders, we ought to take care of the people underneath us. We ought, not that they're like, not that they're underneath us, they're not. But the people who follow us, as leaders, we're there to equip them. We want to make sure that they're all right. We want to make sure that they're being taken care of. It's really important as Christians we do that. Even more so than like actually being the person in charge is taking care of the people around us. When people see that we take care of the people around us, other people want to come into the fold. Other people want to follow you. You know? So, did I miss anything, Brad?
No, that was really good. I love how you mentioned how Jesus says when the Pharisee asked him, like, hey, the greatest commandment is love your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and the second is love your neighbor as yourself. And I just love that. And Romans talks about how if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he's thirsty, give him a drink.
Yeah.
Just loving on people. And it's so important and something. I feel like as Christians, we almost get labeled as we judge other people almost. And it's just something where we need to love first and then do everything after, like 1 Corinthians 13 says.
Yeah, and it's interesting, like, loving people doesn't, like, for example, like, if somebody does something wrong, and you're like, and you point out that they're doing something wrong, sometimes that's out of love. It's not out of, like, wanting to make people look bad. Sometimes it's, like, pulling them aside and being like, hey, like, I know you could do better. Like, this wasn't your best, but I know you could do better. I see more in you. Saying that is still loving somebody. You can still get after people if you're not doing a good job. Because as a person or as a leader who loves the people who follow you, you want them to be the best they can be, right? Just as, like, as a follower, you want your leader to be the best they can be, you know? Because when everybody's being the best they can be, the best outcome happens. I know that was a lot of best, but it's true. So, today was a pretty short Devo, actually. It's just the last two. We got through everything. So H, humility. I, integrity. R, reliability. L, love. And most of us, more often than not, want to be the person in charge. That's not everybody. I understand that not everybody wants to be the person at the front, and that's okay. But I find, like, even when we follow people, we still have to have these things. We still have to be humble. We still have to be we still have to live with integrity. We still have to be reliable. We still have to be loving. These aren't just qualities a leader should have. These are actually qualities everybody should have. But as a leader, you really got to bring these qualities to the table, or as a good leader. There's different types of leadership styles, but I feel like these qualities are more universal and apply to more people, and well, all of leadership, I think. But yeah, but sometimes, we're not ready for leadership, and honestly, like, at that point, we got to ask God, like, hey, like, could you develop these things in me? Could you challenge me on these things? And sometimes it's hard because God will really challenge you on some of these things. Man, humility was like a huge one in my life, because like when I first got into ministry, I'll be honest, I wanted to be like the like youth pastor guy, not like the youth director guy, and that was a big thing. Where I was like, I mean, if you're gonna put me in this position, why don't you, give me the title? And it was just like, looking back on that, I was like, that was not the way to go. That's not the way to think. Like, I have so much to learn, and I have so much to grow in, and that was me learning about humility in that sense, and me learning to be actually more of a reliable person, because I needed to learn so much of what I had to do. And in many ways, I'm actually still learning about what I have to do. And yeah. So, if you feel like you're lacking in any of these areas, I would really recommend going to God, asking God, hey, God, could you build humility in me? Hey, God, I want to live a life of integrity. Can you help me out with this? Hey, God, I want to be known as a reliable person. Can you work through me? Because on my own, I can't do this. Hey, God, I have a hard time loving people around me. In fact, they drive me up the wall, Help me to love them. Help me to treat people as you would. I think really that's a lot of times what leadership comes down to. Help me to be you, Jesus. Because that's what I want to be. Yeah. And that's the end of the Devo today. It's a super short Devo. I do remember I have a couple announcements. So before we close off in prayer, I do want to announce next week is the last live stream. I can't wait. Not that I don't like doing the live stream, but it's just like I'm excited to getting back to do more in-person events. So starting in July, when all the restrictions are lifted, we're going to be doing a park party. And I'm really stoked for that. We're going to do a park party, barbecue, all that jazz, and it'll be a good time. And it will be totally free. So, why not hop on the park party barbecue train? More information will be going out this week. And I'll be sure to post about it on Instagram. So, check it out when we do post. So, sweet. We're going to close off in prayer, and then we're done. So, Father, guys, thank you so much for today. I thank you for everything you've blessed us with, and God, that we can meet together. God, I thank you for just the wonderful weather today, and Lord, I pray that we would desire to be more like you, Jesus, that we would seek humility in our lives, that God, you'd keep us accountable, that, Lord, we live with integrity, that what we do in private would be the same things we do in public. Lord, teach us to be trustworthy and help us to do what we have to do. But most importantly, Lord, I pray, God, that you give us loving hearts and, God, a desire to see the people around us flourish, to care for the people around us and to help them. Lord, I pray as we go out this week that, Father, we'd be safe and that, God, you'd be with us. In your name I pray. Amen. Sweet. We are done the Devo for today. It was pretty short. So for the rest of the night, we're going to go outside because it's great outside, and we're going to play ground.